New York, and on the new Hot 97 app. Ebro in the morning on Hot 97.
Ebro in the morning. Laura Stiles, Rosenberg, Edwin Raymond from the NYPD. Give it up one time.
Thank you.
You may recognize the name. He was part of the 12 officers, the NYPD 12, which came out a few years ago and started enlightening us all to something that many of us already knew, which was the quota system in the NYPD, where there was incentives, and there are incentives, secretly, not public information, not supposed to be public, given to police officers to make arrests, write tickets, et cetera, which those arrests and tickets, desk warrants, desk tickets or whatever.
Desk appearance tickets.
Yeah, appearance tickets, they turn into warrants, and that helps criminalize poor, young, black, brown men specifically, and help that pipeline straight to the prison system. Since that time, Edwin, how have things been going since you started that?
It's been interesting. The community has embraced us, NYPD 12, myself included. But in police world, we've become the pariahs. We're ostracized, unfortunately. They don't understand that this benefits everyone. The community, obviously, that we're being forced to treat this way, but also cops, because I've seen, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've seen cops, suffering anxiety because they didn't meet their quota. And they go out there and anything goes. And, you don't want to be walking around when it's the end of the month and this cop needs to get on, as we say, or pay the rent.
So what happens if you don't meet your quota as a cop?
So at first it starts...
And this is specific to NYPD, or you think this is national?
So what happens is this is one of the detriments born of CompStat, which starts in 95 under former Commissioner Bratton. And because this coincides with a plummeting crime, it becomes people give it credence as to how crime dropped in New York. So other representatives from other police departments and cities, first around the country and even around international cities, they come and they learn this and they bring it back home. So this is actually a nationwide issue.
And this is also woven into this is broken windows policing,
Exactly.
Stop and frisk. All of that is bundled in this.
That's what fuels it, yeah. So the quota, so when you don't meet the quota, it first starts with the conversation, with your supervisor, which is uncomfortable, but it's still okay. From the conversation, you see your posts start to change. You start to get retaliatory posts that you normally wouldn't get.
Retaliatory posts.
Yeah, what does that
meaning
mean?
you're told to go to somewhere.
Culturally, certain things are reserved for rookies. If someone passes away, an officer has to stay with the cadaver until the medical examiner comes.
Okay.
Sometimes elderly folks that people don't check on, they're unfortunately, they've passed for weeks. It's quite an experience to see a body that's been
decomposed
like melt into the chair. It's insane. People's dogs eat their faces, and I'm sorry. So and I can't even imagine this. Think of what a little mouse could do to a room. So imagine a whole human body decomposing for 3 weeks, and the only reason that we know is because the whole building smells it. Now as a rookie cop, you gotta pay your dues. But if you have a certain amount of time on the job, you'll never see an assignment like that until they want to mess with you. So all of a sudden, if you haven't met the quota or you're on the list, I'm not gonna curse on the air.
Shit list?
The shit list, yeah. Thank you.
He's good for things like that.
You're
I do some good sometimes.
So you'll notice like certain people getting assigned to those things.
Your assignments start to change.
Right.
And if that still doesn't motivate you, which is the euphemism that they use to pressure you, that's when you'll start to see it in your evaluations. And now it's called being put on paper. Your evaluations can determine your whole career. One bad evaluation will prevent you from getting into a unit that you've always wanted. You could be a Navy SEAL and want to get into Harbor, and you're not going to get it if you don't meet the quota.
Harbor.
Harbor unit. That's, they deal with anything to do with our waterways, East River, Hudson,
and that's like a cushy situation.
Absolutely. That's a very coveted position, very difficult to get in. And if you don't go out there hammering Black and Latino communities, you're basically saying you never want to get there because they're never going to take you serious. Unless you have some serious cronyism or nepotism, you got to have some serious family members up there. If not, the way to do it with merit is to play this numbers game for at least 5 years, and that's when you can start making moves because you're gonna get the high evaluations, the commanding officer, highly recommended.
So essentially, what we're hearing, and we've talked about this on the air when it became, when you're in the news and NYPD 12, we've covered this and we appreciate you coming up. You are incentivized in the NYPD and other police forces for basically picking on people.
In short, yes. But they'll never see it that way. Their minds see it as doing what you're paid to do.
But
justifying your existence.
And simply creating almost some sort of issue between people wearing badges and wearing the uniform and driving those cars and specific communities. Because that's essentially what people start feeling like, is that every time these people come around, they messing with people on the block, writing tickets, you know, stop and frisk, all of these things, which creates, obviously, a bad relationship.
It's a lot of converse relationships here. It's none of it does what it should be doing. It incentivizes bad policing.
Absolutely.
It incentivizes bad relationships in the areas you're trying to police. A couple of quick questions about you just to set the stage. So how long have you been an officer for?
10 years.
10 years. Yeah. And why did you originally want to be a police officer?
Okay, good question. I actually get that a lot, especially because of, the consciousness. So, growing up, I grew up in East Flatbush, Brooklyn. I'm Haitian. I remember the Abner Louima situation, and I was about 12 years old when that happened. It hit my community hard. Everybody was talking about it. And 2 years after that, it was Amadou Diallo. And that's when I started looking at police officers differently, because prior to that, police were just heroes. I used to watch Cops with my dad and America's Most Wanted, and it was just, I bought the notion that they're simply here to help. And I started seeing these situations. So around 15, 16, that's when I started getting my interactions with cops. And I didn't get it because I'm from the hood, but I walk one of the straightest lines. So I'm like, why am I getting this treatment? But then at 18, that's what kind of pushed it over. It was anti-crime cops, a.k.a. the D's, who hopped out and just completely embarrassed me. And
what was the situation?
I was just walking with my girlfriend at the time. They just hopped out, threw me on the wall, emptied my pockets. And that's when I was like, nah, I got
For no reason. Just like a...
I mean, the thing is, okay, so when you're an anti-crime, the quota changes. It has to be 4, minimum of 4, preferably a gun. But if
minimum of 4
felony arrest.
Okay.
Preferably a gun
per month.
Per month. Gun arrest.
Per month, you have to arrest 4 people for a felony, and you have to find one gun.
No, if it could be 4, like guns are the priority. It's like,
That's right.
what's that movie, Terminator, when they were going after Connor. In Terminator 2, they started going for the family, but when they saw Connor, like the robot went crazy, because that's the number one objective. But if you can't get the gun, you have to get other felonies. That's
that's what makes it so fucked up, because on the surface you go, did it start at some point with the idea of removing guns? I could play with that. Okay, I get the idea of not wanting guns. How do we get to it just being like, no, we just want arrests?
Well, for the anti-crime, a.k.a. the D's, it has to be felonies, preferably guns. For the uniform, it just has to be arrests. You just you have to get on board. We have a monthly sheet where we have to document our activity for the month, and you got to get on board every month. So I would literally watch officers kind of standoffish to themselves because they didn't meet the quota. They're going through the anxiety. If they meet the quota, now they're smiling, but then the beginning of the next month, you're right back to that anxiety.
All right, so you're 18 years old. The anti-crime unit embarrasses you for no reason in front of your girl.
Yeah.
Tries to see if you have a gun. You obviously don't.
No, yeah.
And then what?
And then they drive off, and that's when I say to myself, I need to join this thing. Because it was black cops in there. And you see, when you don't understand the system and what's going on behind it, you write it, he's white, he's racist. He's white, he's racist. It makes sense intuitively. But then in that group, it was a black cop, it was a Dominican brother. And I'm like, wait. Is he racist? I'm 15. I'm about 18, so I'm not really understanding. I said, nah, I need to understand what's going on that he even sees me this way. And I go through the academy, and surprisingly, I couldn't find it in the academy. Academy training, on paper, the training is actually a lot better than I would have ever imagined.
Really?
Yeah.
They don't enforce those ideas by the book. It's the book is not.
The book is actually not bad.
The book's right.
And this is why the department will always stand firm and say, we don't engage in this, we don't do that, because the book is right. But it's the culture once you get out. My first day on actual patrol.
Where was this?
This was in transit in Brooklyn in early 2009, downtown Brooklyn. But it was a citywide unit, but we covered mostly all of Brooklyn. But we were always only put in the hood. And it was all about those numbers. If you didn't get those numbers, you meant nothing to the lieutenant. You meant nothing to the supervisors. You can't get a day off. You know, if you don't consistently meet your quota, if you hand in a slip for leave, they look at you like you're funny. They say, go back out, and depending on what you do out there, I'll see if I can sign that. So you're literally snatching people off the street just because you need a day off to go to your son's basketball game. You know, this is what cops don't deserve that.
No, it puts them in an impossible situation.
Exactly.
And you could corrupt a good person potentially too.
Exactly.
Because they just start now being like, well, I just got to do what I got to do.
Exactly.
And now that mentality.
He's a cop. He's a cop.
Been telling y'all. You see it in the haircut. It's the haircut.
No, that's exactly, like I've heard that so many times, because I'm not gonna lie, my first 3 years, I was, I wouldn't say radical, but I couldn't understand how my peers went along with this. I said, yo, like, you see what's going on? Am I the only one that sees what's going on? And they're like, yo, Ray, come on, man. I got kids to feed. I'm trying to save it for this crib in Long Island, this, that.
Did anybody ever speak up about it before you?
Yes. One of my heroes, his name is Adil Polanco, Dominican brother. He's actually part of the NYPD 12. Okay. I was actually a rookie cop flipping channels, and I saw him, and I was like, okay, so I'm not losing my mind.
Right.
Also, Adrian Schoolcraft, a white officer who they threw in the psych ward. I don't know if you guys heard about that story. It was insane. He spoke.
What's his
name? Adrian Schoolcraft. They were so afraid of that what he was going to come out with that they went to his house and they psyched him. They threw him in Jamaica Hospital. And whenever you put someone in a hospital, you're supposed to make a notification to their family. They didn't notify anyone. And the cops it was insane. He sued. At first, he tried to fight it, but there was no movement behind him. And you grow tired. This thing,
they'll wear you out.
Yeah.
But they got time, bro.
And
got
money,
time and resources.
And your money. You know, it's taxpayer money they use. This is not coming.
So what happened to Adrian?
He couldn't take it. He left. He resigned. He sued. He settled. And I don't know what he's doing now. He won't pick up calls. He wants no parts. It would drive you to that point. If you have no support, it would drive you to that point. Yeah.
Edwin Raymond, the NYPD 12, and there's a documentary about all of what you're talking about. It's called Crime and Punishment.
Correct.
And that's on Hulu right now.
Yeah, it's on Hulu. We're gonna start doing a community screen. Well, we've already started. There's gonna be community screenings. Go on the website. It's crimeandpunishmentdoc.com. And the film is insane. You know, Shani, I mean, you saw it. We put our lives on the line. We made ourselves extremely vulnerable. I let you into my personal space. Like the one sister in the group, she literally just gives birth in the film and is holding her baby for the first time. Like, we let everyone in to give them this very crucial information. You guys have to act on it, because what happens to the NYPD 12, it determines what happens in the future with other cops. So are we going to be, I want to say something, but you saw what happened to them, or are we going to be, let's say something like they did? And what determines that is what the people do with this information.
Right. And what can the people do with this information? We were invited down a year ago now to One Police Plaza.
I remember
right?
that.
James O'Neill stopped by. What's the other guy? He was the head of the cops on the street.
Oh, God. Monahan?
Monahan was there. He just got a new job. It was one of the kids named Tariq. One of the cops' names Tariq. That's how old I am. Sometimes I meet cops. I'm like, yo, what's up, kid? But they were telling us about precision policing and how they weren't doing sweeps anymore and stop and frisk, et cetera, et cetera.
They seemed to believe that things need to change.
And they acknowledged that culturally inside, there are old ways that they need to eradicate. Mm-hmm. And obviously because of police unions and process and this and that, just firing individuals or just getting rid of individuals isn't as easy as we would all like to believe. Okay. And Shani, one of the people in the room, as well as other people, made sure to communicate to them that what the people in us and the people we speak to really want is accountability. We want to know that when y'all fuck up and it's clear that you guys know that what we need to hear from you is that you ain't perfect either. You're human and you fucked up. Yeah. And we want to see people held accountable. And they acknowledged that they understood that,
although
agreed.
Now it's weird, though, because hearing from you, it makes me feel like their idea of what's fucking up is completely skewed.
Well,
so how can we even start?
So where I want to jump in is, you see, accountability is very important, but that's not going deep enough. You have to go to why did that officer make those decisions? And I'm telling you, the countless times I'm watching situations that get controversial, even tragic, and I realize what's really playing on in the back. It's that quota, all right? Because when you stop seeing people, it becomes binary. Either 1018, which means you're in arrest, or 1019, which means I can give you a summons or let you go. So you just see people as these two numbers. You understand? And when you need that arrest or that fourth arrest, especially if you're in an anti-crime unit, because you want to get your detective shield, you start to act up for it. You start to agitate people. And when the cop eventually messes up, those chiefs that were pressing for those numbers, you don't hear that. You don't even know their names. It's this one cop that's being publicly tried and then eventually, actually tried. And don't get me wrong, cops, sometimes the person absolutely simply messed up because of who they are, but a lot of times
they feel immense pressure.
It's the pressure from that system that leads to those decisions.
So when that happens, when a cop is under immense pressure and the supervising officer is having him do all these things, and then he ends up fucking up in that process.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's it. He's by himself now.
I'm about to say, so now he's alone.
Now he's alone. Yeah, the chiefs would never let you know that they wanted those numbers. Are you insane? Because they have to meet with Ebro and say that, we want precision policing. So they can't let you know that they're responsible for that culture. They're responsible for those decisions.
And now I want to go a level further. That not chief, who's putting the pressure on who?
The pressure comes as high as the mayor's office.
All right. So, and that's where I want to go. So you got the guys on the street, and they report to. Mm-hmm. Who do they report to?
So the officers on the bottom report to the sergeant.
Sergeant. And the sergeant reports to?
To the lieutenant.
The lieutenant reports to?
Captain. Commander, deputy inspector, chiefs, and now we start to get into the chiefs.
And the chiefs are trying to justify a number because that makes the mayor look like crime is down so they could get on the news and say crime is down.
The tough on crime rhetoric, this is what justifies it. Not to mention, the operating budget is about $5 billion. You got to justify that. So numbers,
you gave us $5 billion. Crime numbers are down. Here's how we did it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not to mention the revenue generated from summonses. Parking summonses alone is about over $500 million from parking summonses alone.
Yeah, that's a straight racket.
Yeah.
I actually wanted to interview one of those parking ticket writer people because they look like some of the most unhappy individuals.
Their quota is, if you're in a car, it's a little more. If you're on foot, I think it's 23 on foot, 33 in the car.
How many? A day?
A day. Yeah.
So
where do you stand with the NYPD right now?
Okay, so
you have a job. You're currently employed.
I'm employed, but I'm like they're not fans of what I'm trying to do. They've oversimplified my public stance to me being a conscientious objector that's against arresting in general. So they think I'm so against arrests that basically I don't belong on the job because of my views. I was supposed to be promoted last week to lieutenant, and they're using these bogus investigations. Well, the investigation could be legitimate, but bogus allegations to justify not promoting me. And what
is the allegation?
Yeah, what are the allegations?
It was one situation. It was someone who called 911 because his baby mom was breaking his car because she saw him with his new girl. She runs off before any officers get there. And so one of my units get there first. I get there, and the unit tells me, boss, it's not, because he put it over as a robbery because he wanted a quicker response time. So he says, boss, it's not a robbery. It's a criminal mischief, domestic, for breaking the property. I said, okay, so where's the perp? Oh, she ran in the building. So her mother was actually on the scene. I spoke to the mother and convinced the mother to get her to come back to the scene. So we were waiting for her to come back to the scene. And that's when the victim was like, yo, officers, man, y'all ain't got to lock up, man. That's my baby mom's. I got 3 kids with her. I get her locked up. Who's going to watch my kids? I said, you sure? He was like, yeah, I'm good. So that's when I said, what about your car? He said, don't worry. This don't cost no money to fix. So I tell the guys, he no longer wants her arrested. They seem bothered by that. So they said, boss, while we were waiting for you to respond, we actually ran his name, and she has an order of protection against him, so we just going to get him instead. I said, no, you're not. That's not how it works. He has to violate that order. Her coming into his public parking space with a back to his car is not him violating the order of protection against her. You know,
Right.
So
Let's start with this couple's a disaster.
big time.
I mean, yeah.
Separate conversation. Y'all need to not be together. This is not
I
good.
agree. I
Go
agree.
ahead. Okay.
So
But they got 3 kids, so they gonna be
Exactly.
dealing with each other.
For
anyway.
a
Y'all
long
better figure.
time.
Fine. How about therapy and figure it out?
Exactly.
This is not good.
So they, I said no. They was like, well, he's been arrested over 20 times. In a way, trying to persuade me.
Right.
And I'm like, it still doesn't change the circumstances we're dealing with at the moment. And
So
So
now,
they're,
are you
so they're
starting to think-
basically using that to say you didn't want to arrest a guy who's got 20 arrests and you need to be investigated because
exactly.
you're against arrest.
Well, the last part is after I learned he's been arrested so many times. I'm like, brother, you just told me you got 3 kids, man. Like, you can't be getting locked up like that. He's like, you know how it is. I was young, I was dumb, growing up in the hood. I was like, I'm from the hood too. I get it. But
20?
I was like, as a people, we need to make better decisions. And that's it. And that conversation was manipulated into let my people go. It was insane.
Oh yeah, no, black. No, you.
Are you trying to kick knowledge?
Yo, you out.
That's what they hit you with. They hit you with, are you trying to kick
Yo, you
knowledge?
trying to help people?
I'm trying
Why
to
you trying to help him? Why not just send him on his
How
way? Let
dare
him,
you?
I'm trying to be a role model in my community
How
as I'm
dare you?
I'm
How
instead of
dare
chasing
you?
arrest. That's the ultimate
I'm
crime.
unapologetic and unabashedly, I will always be a role model in my community because we need that. I could have moved to Long Island years ago. I stay in Flatbush because the youngsters need to see that. They got to see success that, is not always in the entertainment realm. So, yeah, that's basically what it is.
So how long ago was that?
This happened September of last year.
September of last year.
And
Now-
they're using that to kill my promotion now. Think about that.
Okay, but you believe that the reason they're killing your promotion now is because of your public support of Cap?
Yeah,
Oh,
the I'm
absolutely.
with Cap T-shirt on.
So is
Yeah.
that's
Cap
what
wears pink socks,
Yeah.
man.
That's what the headline of the paper
So let me
was.
explain it. So a New York Times article in February of 2016, that's what puts my story in the public. And it's what I did, because what I did is in order to prove what was going on, I started recording private conversations with supervisors because I studied the stop and frisk case, and it was insane the way they would get on the stand and just lie. I said, wow, you see, if you can't prove it, they're going to be prepped by the attorneys and they're going to lie. So I got to capture this as it's happening so that they can't lie. That's frowned upon in police world. I'm a rat.
Right.
That's it. I'm always going to be branded a rat, and I'll say, you know what?
Amazing.
I'll take
The
that.
people that ask you to wear a wire don't like when you wear a wire. It's incredible.
Exactly. The people, they've ridiculed the people and call them savages for protecting perps when they don't want to cooperate with investigations.
But y'all, and we talk about this all the time on the air. Y'all police officers, man, you want people to be upstanding citizens, but you're not. You want people to out criminals, but you have criminals employed by you wearing your uniform that you will not even point out.
Unless it's me, they'll try to make me the criminal. But yeah, so people were wary of me. I was the rat. I was that guy. But then the Kaepernick press conference, that pushed things to a whole other level. I got death threats after that.
Well, which press conference?
It was at the foot of the Brooklyn Bridge on August 19th of last year.
Okay.
I was able to galvanize about 88 cops, including Frank Serpico himself. And we stood at the bridge and we basically all spoke to why we support Kaepernick as law enforcement officials. The fact that it's not that he hates cops. He's trying to draw light to a very real issue that we continue to ignore. And that's the fact that
There are
marginalized...
bad cops.
Yeah, and the system has its issues that protects those cops, and-
Which screws the good guys.
yeah, but they don't think that deep. One thing about police culture, the more people get absorbed into it, the more their rational thinking diminishes. It becomes about the brotherhood. There's cops, they slowly start to change and they don't realize, and their friends and family would tell them, and before you know it, their entire social circle of cops, who they date, who they hang out with, just everything. Like, they don't even let anyone else in. It's insane.
And a lot of times that can breed racism and all kinds of other things.
Yeah.
Now, tell us about the conversations that you have with police officers, 'cause I'm sure you have people who said, hey, listen, and tried to give you their take on why they're so anti-Cap.
Yeah.
Why do cops seem so anti-Kaepernick?
So I actually respect those cops because they're actually trying to discuss it, as intelligently as they can versus running away with nonsense narratives. So their thing is they always reference the pig socks. Always. Like,
That's every phone call I ever
Right,
get.
right.
But here's the thing.
Socks, man.
Yeah. But the reality is they need to hate him. They want to hate him. And I'll be honest, when he wore those socks, he made it very easy for them to kind of tune out his message. But the good thing is he addressed it himself even before that went viral. So I always show them that.
He did. How did he address it?
He addressed
I need
it
that in my
either
arsenal to
on
tell
Twitter.
people.
Yeah, or he did a good job. He said this is about this. Those socks represent the road cops. He said he has friends who are cops, family members, and other people he knows they do a good job all the time. But the road cops make it hard for everybody. And those socks is a reference to the road cops. But
It's not saying all cops are pigs.
Not at all. And before this thing gets out of hand, I want to address that. He addressed that, I think, 2 days after he first took a seat, before he actually started kneeling. And they ignore that.
Why? Here's the problem I have, and this is a general problem. Police officers have power.
Yes.
Okay? They have a badge. They have a gun. They can use it. Why do we entertain people with this type of power acting like schoolyard children? He wore socks. It hurt my feelings. You're a police officer, bro.
It's the
like
culture.
You have a license to kill, and your response to a football player speaking out and saying something that you don't like is his socks. It's like I'm talking to a 4-year-old. That's the
whole us versus them mentality.
No, but even deeper than that, you're fucking immature,
But
bro.
I think you are being, in my opinion, you can weigh in here. I think you're being, and I think the socks thing is an excuse more than anything, excuse to hate. I think it's bullshit. However, I don't think you're giving full credence to what the term pig means to a lot of cops. Like there's even that moment in Black Klansman where Denzel's son in the movie, she says the word pig, and he's like, whoa, that's not a word I use. So like,
what does it mean to y'all? I don't know.
I don't know. You tell me. Do you think that for a lot of people is that just a really sensitive depiction?
Yeah, it's their version of the N-word, I guess. It's just
based on what though?
The Huey.
Because the Black Panthers called y'all pigs? Because y'all was brutalizing people and beating the shit out of them? Like what?
I hear what you're saying, but I'm not trying to justify it.
I'm not, and it's coming off that way. But
I'm just trying to find the relatability. If there's some sort of thing that makes them,
here's why I don't have that patience. You got a badge and a gun, and you get paid by taxpayers. My expectation of you is better than just a pedestrian walking around who got offended because somebody said "fuck off." I expect you to have more of a moral compass and code,
and even an understanding of why citizens can be easily frustrated with you. That's part of the job.
That's the most important part. Like, you know, I had already researched this thing before I went in. A lot of cops have for instance, cops are like, "How do you support someone that compared us to slave patrol?" So I said, because that's why. And they were like, oh, wow.
And what did you show them?
They had no
literally
idea about slave patrol. They had no idea what that was.
Overseer.
Overseer, officer.
You know, exactly. They had no idea. And it's funny because former...
And they don't understand that the original quota system was chasing down runaway slaves and figuring out a reason to lock up black people so America could have cheap labor. Right. That goes to the 13th Amendment conversation.
Nah, they won't know all that, man. And we need to get that in the curriculum. It's funny because former FBI Director Comey, he actually said this a few years ago, you know, at the height of, Eric Garner and everything that was happening. He's like, cops need to remember what this all started with so they can understand the people's historical views. But the cops, many people, their reaction will be, well, that was history. That's not happening.
Get over it.
Yeah, but it's not.
Well, get over the fucking socks.
No.
How about that?
No. Socks is more important than the history of this country.
How many police officers do you encounter who, like, internally point out or agree with, like, yo, that's a fucked up, police officer, that doesn't represent me, but are scared to verbalize it?
It's thousands, a lot of officers. And that's one thing I have to say. In the two and a half years that I've been public about this stance, over 1,000 cops, probably 800 NYPD alone, other 200 from around the nation have reached out. Even more, every week I'm getting cops reaching out saying thank you, because people have no idea. We don't want to treat them like that. We just trying to make our numbers because we don't want to be treated, a certain way. And that's the thing that I want to put out there. A lot of times, because where I grew up, I'm the only cop that people know and trust for miles. And every time they get into a negative experience with a cop, they'll call me, yo, E, this cop, such and such. I said, honestly, putting everything together, he or she was just trying to make her number.
Monahan and you were cool?
I've been in the same room as him. I've never actually met him.
Yo, Monahan, I need you to talk to my guy here. We having some problems. You and James O'Neill cool?
Again, I've been in a room with him multiple times, never actually been formed.
Yo, Jimmy!
I don't know if you.
So
Jimmy O.
I don't know.
What? What's the problem?
No, I just don't know.
I don't have no charges.
Have
You
any
run my
chiefs-
only thing I owe the IRS some money. What y'all want?
Have any
So I got
chiefs
some
or
parking tickets too. Y'all want to
I've
tow
asked
my
you to
truck?
have one-on-ones or have conversations with you to further understand where you're coming from?
I'll tell you this. Everyone I've spoken to, on this level, they're like, okay, I'm not going to lie. I had you misunderstood. And that's my bad because I kind of ran with the rhetoric. There's not one person in the police department I've ever spoken to, despite their rank, that doesn't change how they see me. Because they, it's like, what's the name? Angela Rye. Like, we're not allowed to talk about race. That's one of the remnants of the civil rights movement. We had the civil rights bill, the voting rights, immigration bill, affirmative action. Ever since then, it's like we put a patch on racism and we're not allowed to talk about it. So if you decide to talk about it today, it's because you're racist. It's one of those.
You're obsessed with race.
Is this an NYPD thing?
No,
No,
this
that's
is
everywhere.
our culture.
That's our culture.
But
I don't
unfortunately,
live
no,
over
because
there.
that's one of the
I talk about race every day.
But that's
I missed the memo.
But that's one of the charges that I get, that I'm racist. Also, they think I hate white
No, you're
people.
racial.
No,
because race is an issue, but you're not racist because you don't have enough power to be a racist. You can't even get elevated at your job. If you was a racist, you'd be able to be like, you know what, I'm elevating myself.
But he's not even
why?
But he's not a
I'm
big.
black.
But he's not a bigot either.
Exactly.
And that's the problem. You're
And
not
that's
a
what they
bigot
think.
because you talk about race.
That's what they assume, and unfortunately, that's what we get charged with, especially when you're a person of color discussing these things. And you're white, you're just a self-hating white liberal.
That's what I actually get. Yesterday, I got a tweet. I gotta get that racist off the air, and I almost wrote back. I was like, I just want to be clear. When you say racist, you mean towards white people, and I'm white. That's just not the right word, right? It's got to say self-hater. You can't say racist.
Well, I think ignorance is one of the things that
Big
we're
time.
seeing as a reoccurring theme in all of these conversations.
You don't say.
And by ignorance, I mean in the truest form.
Yes.
You do not have the information. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
That's right.
Right, and I'm dead ass about Jimmy O'Neill and you having a meeting with Monahan because they will email us up here and me in a minute and be like, hey, we trying to do X, Y, Z.
Listen, I don't enjoy having to take this public stance and seem as if I'm fighting my own department. I don't enjoy it. It's from years of trying to do things internally, realizing that they won't even hear me.
How about this? I'm gonna take it a step further. NYPD, you have a real opportunity right this moment to embrace somebody who actually believes that change can happen.
Absolutely.
You have a real opportunity to say, you know what? This man right here is really trying to do something to make our relationship with the community better.
And you're also totally reasonable. Like there's just no reason. I get when you're dealing with people who are so closed off so often and they have so much pressure from other people. Because think about it. Even if you meet with the guys, the Monahan and Jimmy O and all these people who I do think are somewhat progressive.
It's James O'Neill to you, Jimmy O to me.
Sorry. James, I'm just a low
I gotta call him.
That's my G.
I gotta call him sir.
Yeah. Anyways, even though they're progressive, we know that they're answering. Maybe James O'Neill doesn't have to answer professionally, but they are answering to many other people who are not progressive or informed. So I can see how at first they get intimidated, but having a conversation with you, to Ebro's point, could be so progressive for so many reasons.
That's all I've ever wanted. But the reality is, as much as they deny what we're putting out there, they know it's true, and they're bothered by our methods. But since you opened up the platform in terms of progressive, our current mayor, I've tried so hard to not mention him because through connections and channels, I want to say I know he means well, but he has dropped the ball when it comes to police reform. You understand? This is why we elected him. I remember him marching arm in arm with the Justice League I think it was on Father's Day 2013 against Stop and Frisk. And yet he then puts Bratton, the father of Stop and Frisk and Quotas and Comstat, and so-called quality of life policing, then he makes him the commissioner. So that was a little questionable. And then unfortunately we get Eric Garner, the two brothers who get killed in Bed-Stuy, the two officers. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, he
hasn't been able to reel it back in.
He is lost when it comes to any question about policing. If he's trying to talk about the good crime numbers, he'll reference that, but then he'll sidestep and let the police department
once
handle
the
everything.
police turned their back on him.
Oh man,
he couldn't
recover.
It changed him. It changed him. And here's what I want to tell him. I get it. This is not an easy force to seem like you're going against, because sadly, the status quo, they don't take constructive criticism constructively.
Right.
They see it as you're attacking them. But if you have an officer and 12 officers who are willing to stand up internally, you got to support them, Mayor. You know, we're doing what you were elected to do. You have to support us.
He don't talk to us no more.
I could imagine. You know, this is what.
Let's
And
try.
listen, I have to. And I hate.
How many times we emailed them?
Listen.
He used to come.
Yeah.
To talk to us.
We had him 800 times. As soon as his team screwed up with the lead paint and the nitro thing,
That's
we ain't
it.
hear from him again. Because you botched it. You fumbled. You flubbed. I mean, what you want me to say?
Let me tell you, at the end of 2014, when the 2 officers were killed, actually it was right before they were killed, and you know, the whole Eric Garner non-indictment thing happened with the officer. He did something that I appreciated. He said, as a parent, when your kid is out there, you're concerned. But when you're raising black kids, there's an additional concern that the detriments that they experience could come at the hands of police. It's a very real thing. Nobody loved cops more than my dad, and my dad had that conversation with me. He said, Edwin, remember, you're a young black man and what that means in the world. They're not gonna see an intelligent, hardworking, you know, extremely moral young man. They're just gonna see another black man walking the street. And that's it. Once he said that, it was over. The unions attacked him. They oversimplified something much more complex into him hating cops. And he
that's the easiest thing.
You know,
Hating
and he
cops.
referenced his son, and it kills me because he actually supports broken windows policing. The idea that you got to over police the small stuff to stop the big stuff, it's utter nonsense. But he doesn't realize that's what leads to the problems. You know, so that same fear you have for Dante, most likely that cop just needed their arrest for the month before you know it, Dante or whoever, somebody's son.
Too, once
is having a
again,
bad
back to
situation.
socks and back to fucking police officers acting like children. People don't like y'all. Y'all got a gun on and you fuck with people and you expect people to like y'all just because you got the toughest and most protective and you got the car and it's you and your boy. See, because that's the real problem.
It's part of the
real
culture.
problem is you think respect means fear. People are afraid to die for sure, but that don't mean you got respect. That's a different thing. And so that whole attitude of like, can't take criticism. Oh, nah, we can't speak out about ways that we fucked up. Oh, what do you mean? What? What are you talking
But again,
about?
but that gets to your point about that coming from a system even deeper, because some of those
Yes.
people, the reason they're moving that way is because they need to arrest you.
Yeah.
Oh, now you're speaking up and making it harder for me? Now here comes the super disrespect.
And I've said this before, you actually help a cop out psychologically when you
Oh,
because-
that's it.
Because they get to write you, he's a dick, fuck him anyway.
Right.
You know?
If he'd been super cool, maybe you're the one who gets the
tough.
pass.
You know, even if not the pass, it eats the cop up.
Right, or they feel bad about
I've
it.
seen cops like, damn, man.
He was really cool.
You know, like, damn, but you know, it's the end of the month. I'm going on vacation. I'm not gonna have an opportunity to get on this month. So I gotta hurry up and get it out the way. That's all
See,
it is.
I just
so
think
it's not cool when you only roll down the window like this far and you slide your insurance and your ID out through the window?
you don't even do that,
Ebro's
do you?
crazy, man.
I haven't got pulled over in a long time, but I used to do that. I used to just stick it out the window like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
And then they would knock and go, can you roll down your window? And I go, for what?
Oh yeah. It's a
Yeah, I
wrap.
wouldn't do that.
You just made it so easy to write that
Yeah,
summary.
that might
I
get
can take it. Yeah, my tints is dark. So what?
Yeah, you just made it real easy for them. I tell you that much.
So what?
But I think you're literally
that.
doing the opposite of what you're doing, which is trying to.
Yeah.
He's not justifying anything, but opening the door to understanding on both
Exactly.
sides. That a lot of the officers on foot
And
may
something-
do bad things, but it's coming from bad coaching that's
Exactly.
leading to
The
it.
pressure. And I have to put this on the record. The countless white officers who reach out and say thank you. He was like, hopefully, if you're successful, I will be given the benefit of the doubt when I make certain decisions. And people are not going to automatically think I'm racist. They're going to understand this is what's really playing on in the background. You know, a lot of white officers, the pattern is white guys from, you know, Long Island upstate who come on the job a little older. They have a lot more understanding. And, you know, a lot of people would never think that. And I'm glad I'm in a position to be able to see that.
Who's the worst? Well, I don't want to judge it like that, but I would imagine that younger officers who was built into their family, and it was sort of like they just did it. They didn't think about wanting to do it. It was just sort of what they did. Maybe more likely to just fall in line with the same old rituals.
Yeah, it varies, but from my observation, you know, anecdotal, but from my observation, Yeah, they tend to be, because, you know, they grew up, they were watching Barney while their uncle and their father were talking about war stories in East New York.
And they were already
What
hearing
about the fucking dorks that used to get smacked up in high school?
I mean,
that's get tough.
That's a common, I've definitely met a few of those. That's a common.
What about the steroid users that are steroided out of their fucking
Ebro,
brain?
we're trying to help you. You're doing that. That's not the. That's not
Ebro.
helpful. It's not helpful. It's just not helpful.
What happens? I know what it is.
Man.
You roided out your fucking mind. You want to know why you so
How can
upset?
anyone who wants to support you, what can they do?
Okay, so the great thing is people are outraged by this. They know exactly what's happening. They're trying to cut off my legs because they don't want this mind up there. They did everything to keep my promotion to sergeant from me, and I fought that, and I got it. And now they're using these nonsense witch hunt allegations, manipulated facts of what actually happened in these situations to try to do it now. And they feel as if they have a leg to stand on, but they're gonna. I mean, the things that I have access to, they have access to. So the fact that they're doubling down and not promoting me, it's insane.
And this promotion was supposed to happen last week.
Yes.
And they're using that incident.
Yeah.
That one incident.
It's two incidents. Yeah, but they're both nonsense.
To say that you shouldn't become a
lieutenant.
Yeah,
that's when the white shirt. I'm in charge of sergeants. I'm in charge of the entire shift.
How many white shirts you about to get?
I got to get 10, man.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. So
we're gonna get this. We're gonna get this done.
So at 10:30 tomorrow, at Friday at the City Hall, there's gonna be a press conference with elected officials, a couple of organizations who are gonna speak to the matter, and for decades, if not centuries, people have been asking for police officers to step up. Rosenberg, you probably don't remember this, but 2 years ago, you actually put it up like, when are the cops going to lead the charge?
Yes, and I know I got thrown on those message boards of people who are not thrilled with me.
Well, I'll tell you this: the NYPD 12 has answered that. We are taking this responsibility, but we need you. So this is the opportunity to support us. If you can show up at City Hall at 10:30 a.m. tomorrow, this is an opportunity to support us because we've done it. We can't do it without you. This machine is powerful, but there's nothing like the power of the people. Being Haitian, on our flag, it says "L'union fait la force," which translates to unity is power, unity is strength. And if you know anything about the Haitian Revolution, this is how they were able to defeat Napoleon. Louisiana Purchase, everything else that happens after. So please join us.
10:30 City Hall tomorrow.
Correct. People would sarcastically say, where are the so-called good cops? How come they sit around and do nothing? There's no such thing as a good cop.
Other cops are hiding the good cops.
Well, here we are. Here we are willing to do something for the community and for the cops that have to get this treatment. Join us. Officers and people, join us at City Hall, 10:30 tomorrow.
Thank you, man. This was a real pleasure.
Edwin Raymond.
Thank you.
Check out
Crime and Punishment.
Crime and Punishment on Hulu now.
Yeah. Appreciate you all. Damn.